Do you think being a city guard is all about honor, heroism, and glory? Sorry, but someone forgot to warn you. There are no heroes in this story. Here, it's endless damp, rot, and exhaustion, a constant grime beneath your fingernails, and deep inside your soul, fear in the eyes of townsfolk, and indifference in the gaze of your superiors. Your name will be forgotten, your labor unappreciated, and your main weapon is not a sword, but patience. You are not a protector, not a judge, not an arbiter of fate. You are just a cog in an old, rusted mechanism that slowly grinds down lives, hopes, and consciences. But before you get too comfortable, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is there. I'm genuinely curious to see who's joined us. Now settle in, we're about to begin. You wake before the bells toll midnight, though you did not truly sleep. There is no such thing as real rest for a city guard. Your bed, if one may call it that, is a bundle of straw that creaks with every movement and smells like old sweat and something sour you cannot name. It is dark, and the chill crawls in under your threadbare blanket, nipping at your knees, prodding at your spine. Your bones ache already, and you have not even risen yet. This is how your day begins, shivering, tired, and wishing for another life. But there is no other life. You are a city guard, the lowest rung of authority, barely more respected than a beggar, and sometimes even less liked. So you get up, you stretch your limbs, and you curse under your breath at the familiar pain. Outside, the air is even colder, slicing at your face as you step from the barracks into the night. The sky is starless, choked by low, heavy clouds. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, then falls silent. There are no lanterns, only the meager torch you are given, which gutters and sputters in the wind as though as eager as you are to be anywhere else. You fumble with your armor. The leather straps are stiff with age, and the plates, if you are lucky enough to have real metal, are patched and mismatched like a jigsaw puzzle assembled by a blind man. Some pieces do not fit quite right, and all of them dig into your flesh, especially when you try to move. Your helmet smells of mildew and last week's stew, and you try not to think about the lice that undoubtedly call it home. Your sword is not sharp, and you suspect it never was, but it is heavy, and that, you are told, is enough to scare most troublemakers. Your patrol begins at the city's outer gate, a place where nothing ever happens, except, of course, when it does. The guard captain assigns you this post with a wink, which is neither friendly nor reassuring. It is as though he knows something you do not, but you are not brave enough to ask. Perhaps he simply enjoys seeing you suffer in the wind and the dark, your teeth chattering so loudly you are sure the city can hear. You trudge to your spot, torch in hand, armor clanking. The stones under your feet are slick with last night's rain, and you nearly slip twice before you reach your assigned patch of wall. You set your feet wide and try to look imposing, which is difficult when your nose is running and your eyes keep watering from the cold. You are not alone out here. There are others like you, equally miserable, each pretending not to notice the other's suffering. Conversation is discouraged. If the captain catches you speaking, there will be extra chores, emptying the chamber pots, scrubbing the blood from the dungeons, or, worst of all, cleaning the captain's boots. So you stand in silence. You listen to the sounds of the city breathing. Somewhere, a baby wails. Somewhere else, a drunkard curses the moon. You can smell the smoke from distant hearths, mingled with the sharp tang of the tanneries and the sweeter, more alarming scent of rot from the river. It is an old city, this, and it is dying in 100 ways, most of which you are paid to ignore. You think, as you always do, about how you came to be here. Was it fate or simply a lack of options? You remember the promises they made: a warm bed, 3 meals a day, respect, lies, all of it. The bed is cold, the meals are thin, and the respect is a joke you share with the rats. But you have nowhere else to go. There are too many mouths in your family's home, too many debts owed, and too few coins to pay them. So here you are, a city guard, part of the city's last, wheezing line of defense against chaos. Your thoughts are interrupted by movement in the shadows. You grip your sword, heart thudding. It is a cat, thin and wild, prowling for scraps. You relax, but only a little. There are worse things than cats in this city. Much worse. Hours pass. The cold seeps into your bones. You shift your weight from foot to foot, counting heartbeats, counting stars, though there are none tonight, not even a sliver of moon to guide you. The city is a beast, restless and hungry, and you are one of the fleas riding its back. You know that danger is always just out of sight, waiting for the moment you let your guard down. This is your life, waiting, watching, dreading, enduring. The night is long, and the morning is no promise of relief. But you do not think about that. You simply keep standing because you have no choice. Somewhere in the darkness, a bell tolls. The hour has changed, but nothing else has. You draw your cloak tighter, steel yourself for the rest of your shift, and wonder, not for the first time, how many more nights like this you will endure before something finally changes. But nothing ever does. Morning comes not with the promise of relief, but with the certainty of more work. As the sun struggles to rise over the smoky rooftops, its feeble light reveals the city in all its honest misery. You are assigned to the main square, the heart of the town, or perhaps more accurately, its grimy, half-rotten liver. You trudge through narrow streets, your boots caked in mud and things you hope are only mud. Every doorway leaks refuse into the street. Chamber pots are emptied with casual cruelty from upstairs windows, and more than once you narrowly escape a downpour of something warm and unspeakable. The city smells like the inside of a dying man's mouth, and you breathe through your mouth in hopes it will help, but it does not. By the time you reach your post, the market square is beginning to wake. Traders arrive, their carts creaking and sagging under the weight of withered vegetables, questionable meat, and threadbare cloth. The best goods never see the market. The best goods are sold in shadowed rooms to people whose names you are not meant to know. What remains is for everyone else shriveled apples, yellowing onions, bread so hard it could be used for masonry, and fish that have long ago forgotten the taste of water. Your job is simple, at least in theory. Keep order, prevent theft, and make your presence known. You are told you represent authority, but the people here look at you with the tired disdain they reserve for rats and tax collectors. Some mutter under their breath as you pass, others ignore you altogether. To them, you are a fixture, like the dung in the gutters or the crows on the rooftops. Your armor glints dully in the morning sun, but you know it is more decoration than defense. Any real trouble, and you would fare little better than a butcher's dog. You stand at the edge of the square, eyes scanning the crowd for trouble. But what does trouble look like? Everyone here is desperate in their own way. You watch a woman haggling over a sack of turnips, her children clutching at her skirt, their faces hollow eyed and silent. A boy slips through the crowd, nimble as a fish, and snatches a loaf of bread from an inattentive baker. You see it happen, but do nothing. If you chased every hungry child, you would be running until your boots wore through. Besides, the baker has more loaves, and the boy has little enough. Instead, you turn your attention to a pair of fishmongers, already shouting at each other over territory. Their voices carry, shrill and rough, and soon a crowd gathers. This, at least, is something you are expected to manage. You wade into the dispute, your boots squelching in muck, and raise your voice, loud, firm, authoritative, or so you hope. The fishmongers glare at you, then at each other, but after some muttered curses and threats that neither intends to keep, they return to their stalls. The crowd disperses, disappointed at the lack of violence. You return to your post, sweat beading on your brow despite the chill. Already, your feet ache and your back protests the weight of your armor. The morning drags on. Vendors shout their wares, children chase dogs, and in every so often, a sharp eyed merchant gives you a look that says very clearly that if you interfere with his business, he will make your life harder in 100 subtle ways. You are surrounded by people, but you have never felt more alone. An old man shuffles past, his clothes patched and repatched, his beard yellow with age and neglect. He spits at your feet, not out of malice, but as if to say, "You are not so different from the rest of us." And you are not. The only difference is the thin layer of iron and leather between you and the world, and even that does not count for much. Every now and then, the captain makes his rounds. He strides through the market with a look of practiced indifference, his armor brighter, his sword sharper, his boots free of mud. He does not speak to you. He does not need to. His presence alone is enough to remind you of your place. When he leaves, you exhale a breath you did not realize you were holding. Midday comes, bringing with it a brief surge of activity. More people crowd into the square jostling and shouting, desperate to sell, to buy, to steal, to survive. Somewhere, a scuffle breaks out over a handful of coins. You are expected to intervene, but by the time you reach the scene, the combatants have vanished, swallowed by the crowd. You return to your post, heart pounding, wishing you could do the same. By afternoon, the market begins to empty. The unlucky traders pack up what little they have left, their faces set in grim lines. The square settles into a tired silence, broken only by the cawing of crows and the distant sound of church bells. You feel the weight of the day pressing down on you, heavier even than your armor. You realize, not for the first time, that you do not guard anything of value. The city, the people, the market, all are as expendable as you are. Your duty is not to protect, but to endure. You are not a hero. You are a placeholder, a moving shadow among ruins, hoping the darkness does not notice you. As the sun begins to set, you glance around one last time. The market square is empty now, save for a few stragglers and the ever present rats. You wonder, briefly, what tomorrow will bring, but quickly dismiss the thought. Tomorrow will be the same as today. The same filth, the same hunger, the same indifference. You turn and march back to the barracks. The day is done, but the night is waiting, and so are you. No story about the life of a medieval city guard is complete without describing, in excruciating detail, the daily war you wage against your own equipment. Armor, in theory, is supposed to protect you. In practice, it is another adversary, one that does not sleep, does not tire, and knows exactly where your soft spots are. Your morning begins, as usual, with the ritual of suiting up. It is not a heroic process. There are no pages or squires to help you. There is only you, half awake, with stiff fingers and a rising sense of dread as you approach your heap of leather and metal. Your armor is not custom made. It is, in fact, assembled from the detritus left behind by better men who died, retired, or simply ran away. The breastplate was clearly designed for someone with the physique of a barrel, while the greaves are better suited to a stork. Your helmet pinches your ears and sits so low on your brow that you can barely see out from under it. The inside is slick with sweat from yesterday's shift, and the smell could knock out a goat. There is always a strap that refuses to buckle, a knot that refuses to untie, and a buckle that bites into your flesh just so. The city's armorers, may their names be forgotten, are masters of discomfort. No amount of padding ever seems sufficient. By the time you have managed to squeeze yourself into your second skin, you are already sweating, your joints already protesting. You shuffle down the hallway, armor clanking, half expecting a passing rat to look up at you and shake its head in pity. There is no breakfast. If you are lucky, you gnaw on a hunk of last night's bread, now so hard that you could chip a tooth. If you are unlucky, you simply make do with the taste of yesterday's regrets. Your weapon, such as it is, hangs at your side, a constant, unhelpful companion. It is a sword, in the same sense that a rusted kitchen knife is a sword. The blade is pitted and dull, the hilt wrapped in layers of rag to prevent the worst of the splinters. You perform the daily charade of inspection, drawing it, squinting down the blade, giving it a half hearted wipe with your sleeve, then sliding it back into its cracked sheath. There is also a wooden club, which you prefer. It is honest. It expects nothing more from you than to be swung at someone's head. Once outfitted, you join the rest of the patrol, a grim procession of men and women, all similarly bedecked in rust and patched leather, all sharing the same 1,000-yard stare. No one talks. There is nothing left to say. You know each other's stories already. You all had better dreams once. The captain barks the day's assignments. His armor is in better condition, his sword sharper, and his tone especially sour this morning. You suspect he had a bad night, but the captain's bad nights are everyone's problem. He reminds you all, yet again, that discipline must be maintained, order must be kept, and any dereliction will be punished with docked wages or, worse, a night on privy duty. You nod, not because you agree, but because nodding is easier than arguing. Your route takes you through the richer part of the city. The streets are less muddy here, but no cleaner. The refuse is simply hidden behind walls, out of sight and out of mind. You pass by the houses of merchants, their windows shuttered, their doors locked. Occasionally, a servant opens a door just wide enough to throw out a bucket of dirty water or kitchen scraps. You learn quickly to keep to the center of the street, lest you become the unintended recipient. You find yourself reflecting, as you walk, on how little separates you from the beggars. The only real difference is the uniform. A few layers of stinking leather and iron are all that keep you from their fate. You are not respected here, only tolerated. If you stop too long in front of any doorway, a nervous housemaid or a scowling master will appear to ask if you are needed. The implication is clear. Move along, or trouble will find you. Your boots, meanwhile, have their own agenda. The left one leaks, the right one pinches, and both seem determined to develop blisters in new and exciting locations every day. You trudge on, counting steps, counting the minutes until your shift ends, though you know that time is a liar here. Hours stretch and tangle, especially when your only company is the constant clink and scrape of ill fitting armor. Eventually, you reach the end of your route and circle back towards the barracks. The city has not changed in your absence. The same dogs, the same suspicious stares, the same smell. You are sweating beneath your armor, your muscles are sore, and you feel every inch as heavy and slow as you look. Your only reward for completing your patrol is the knowledge that you will have to do it all again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, until the end of your service, or your endurance, whichever comes first. Once back, you wrestle your armor off with no more dignity than when you put it on. The straps catch, the buckles bite, and you curse with the creativity born only from years of irritation. Your skin is raw in places, bruised in others. You collapse onto your bunk, too tired even to eat. The city outside does not care, and neither, it seems, does anyone else. You stare at the ceiling, the weight of another pointless day pressing down on you. Tomorrow, your equipment will still not fit. Tomorrow, your sword will still be dull. But tomorrow, you will still be here because there is nowhere else to go. You might imagine the barracks of the city guard as a place of camaraderie and masculine vigor, a sturdy redoubt filled with the bravest men and women, all clean and upright, shining their armor, sharing stories of valor, and preparing for the next call to arms. You, of course, know better. The reality is considerably less inspiring. The barracks is a squat, damp stone building that always feels too small for the number of bodies inside. The air is thick, laced with a heady blend of sweat, mildew, stale ale, and wet dog. You have long since stopped noticing the smell, except on the rare occasion when you leave for more than a day and upon returning find your eyes watering anew. There are mice in the walls and sometimes in your boots. There are lice in your sheets and sometimes in your beard. Your bunk is little more than a plank suspended between two rough-hewn timbers. If you are lucky, you have a pile of straw to soften the boards. If you are unlucky, you share your straw with unseen company. Above you, a small window offers a view of the city wall, or, more commonly, a view of the rainwater trickling down the glass. Blankets are thin and full of holes, but at least they offer the illusion of warmth. Washing in the barracks is an exercise in futility. There is a communal basin in the yard, which is replenished with fresh water when someone remembers, or when a new recruit is unfortunate enough to be assigned the task. The water is always cold, sometimes frozen, and always cloudy with grime, soap, and the occasional dead insect. Soap itself is a rare luxury, most often replaced with sand or ashes, which you rub into your skin in the hope that friction will dislodge at least some of the filth. Bathing is less a ritual of cleanliness and more an act of self-defense. You strip down, shivering, while your comrades offer helpful advice, or more likely, snide commentary. You wash quickly, aware that the longer you spend at the basin, the more likely someone will see fit to dunk your head or accidentally spill the bucket over your back. There is no privacy here, no dignity, only the bare minimum needed to keep yourself from itching to death in your armor. Your uniform, such as it is, rarely dries between washings. You hang it on a line, hoping the sun will do its work, but most days it simply grows heavier with damp. When you dress for patrol, the fabric clings to your skin, cold and clammy, already beginning to stink. Leather straps harden and crack if left unwatched, and the metal plates of your armor develop patches of rust that seem to breed overnight. Cleaning your equipment is another daily ordeal. The captain claims that a well-kept sword is the mark of a professional, but your sword, like you, has seen better days. You scrape away at the rust with a knife, rub oil into the blade if you have any, and pray that it will hold together if ever truly needed. Your helmet, your breastplate, Your battered boots all require constant attention and all respond with indifference. The mud never truly comes out. The sweat never truly dries. Every task, every chore is a reminder that for the city guard, there is no such thing as being ready, only being slightly less unprepared than yesterday. Meal times in the barracks are similarly grim. Food arrives in great vats, ladled out by whoever drew the shortest straw. Breakfast is often nothing more than a thin porridge, gray and lumpy, with the occasional lucky lump of something unidentifiable. You eat quickly, surrounded by the sound of chewing and slurping, because the faster you finish, the less time you spend in the stench. No one lingers. There is no reason to. The captain sometimes eats with the men and women, but more often he keeps to his private quarters, safe from the worst of the company and the food. Sometimes, after a particularly bad day, you and your fellow guards gather in the corner to share a flask of something strong and probably dangerous. You trade stories, not of glory, but of petty humiliations, who slipped in the mud, who lost a boot to a street thief, who was caught snoring on duty and assigned to latrine cleaning for a week. Laughter is rare and brittle, but sometimes, in the darkness, it almost sounds genuine. And then there are the chores, the endless, pointless chores. Cleaning out the latrines is the most hated task of all, but there are also floors to be swept, dishes to be scrubbed, armor to be mended, and messages to be run to the captain's office. You might wonder why a city as important as yours does not hire someone else for these jobs. You wonder that too. The answer is that it is easier and cheaper to make the guards do it. After all, if you have time to complain, you have time to scrub. You have learned not to complain too loudly. There is always a worse duty waiting. The dungeons, for instance, need regular cleaning, and it is said the rats there are as large as cats. The kitchen, too, is always looking for extra hands, especially when the cook is in a mood and begins throwing knives rather than onions. At the end of each day, you collapse into your bunk, exhausted, still faintly dirty, still hungry. The barracks creak and groan around you. Someone snores. Someone curses. Someone, somewhere, is already up and preparing for another shift. And you, like all the others, try to sleep, knowing that in a few short hours it will all begin again. If there is a brotherhood among the guards, it is not built on trust or pride, but on shared misery. You all endure together. You all stink together. You all wake together. And you all, eventually, break together. That is the way of things, and no amount of washing will ever change it. There are moments, rare and brief, when you almost believe your duties as a city guard matter. They occur most often during your assigned time on the city walls, a relic of an earlier age when attackers were more likely to storm the gates than to sneak through them in the night. Now, the walls are mostly symbolic, crumbling under the weight of centuries and neglect, as drafty and damp as a stone tomb, and nearly as lively. Your shift starts well before sunrise, a cruel joke played by the captain on whoever drew the wrong pebble from the bowl. Your bones ache from sleep interrupted, your body still sticky with sweat and last night's gruel. You haul your armor back on, buckle your cloak against the cold, and trudge up the winding, uneven staircase that leads to the battlements. With every step, your knees pop and creak. The stairwell is narrow, forcing you to sidestep puddles of water that never seem to dry. Somewhere above, a lantern flickers, a pale, feeble light, as if the flame itself resents being awake so early. The city wall stretches along the edge of the town, a battered barrier of mossy stone. From here, in theory, you can see for leagues the rolling fields, the narrow river, the distant black line of forest. But in reality, your vision is hemmed in by a fog so thick you can barely see the edge of your own boots. The wind howls straight from the north, finding every gap in your armor, slicing through your tunic and turning your fingers into stiff, useless claws. You rub your hands together, but the cold is stubborn and victorious. Your breath comes out in clouds, white and useless. You are alone, as you always are on this duty. The other guard, meant to share your shift, has disappeared, perhaps sleeping in the latrines, perhaps doing a favor for someone with more coin and less scruple. It does not matter. There is no one to talk to but the crows perched along the wall, watching you with glassy eyes. Occasionally, one caws, a sound more mocking than warning. You understand its meaning. No one is coming. No one cares. Your task is to watch for signs of trouble, fires in the distance, movement at the edge of the fields, anything that might suggest the arrival of raiders or worse. But in truth, nothing happens. The outside world is as tired as the city itself. Once, there were real threats, bands of desperate men, wild beasts, armies with banners and ambition. Now, even the wolves have moved on, and the only invaders are the rats, scaling the walls with more agility than most men. You do not patrol so much as pace, back and forth along a patch of wall barely the length of a horse. Your boots slap the stones, leaving damp marks behind. Sometimes you look outwards, sometimes inwards. The view inside the city is no better than the view outside. Rooftops bow under the weight of their own disrepair. Smoke drifts from chimneys, sluggish and gray. In the alleys, stray dogs root through piles of refuse, fighting the rats for the choicest scraps. It is hard to imagine a time when this place was proud or new. The cold gnaws at your will. Every part of you stiffens. You shift your weight, stamp your feet, and mutter curses at no one in particular. Every so often, you are forced to trudge to the guardhouse at the corner, where a battered brazier offers the world's smallest flame. You hold your hands over it, inhaling the sharp stench of burnt peat, but the warmth never lasts. Sometimes another guard passes through, eyes red, nose running, teeth chattering. You nod. No one ever speaks. Conversation is a luxury for the well rested and the well fed, and you are neither. Time distorts on the wall. Minutes drag like hours, hours like years. You imagine yourself frozen to the spot, an extension of the stone itself. Sometimes you catch yourself daydreaming of food, of warmth, of a place where you are not merely scenery in someone else's misery. Once, a merchant's daughter walked the wall just to look at the countryside. She smiled at you, a flash of pity in her eyes, and for a moment you felt almost visible. Then she turned away, and you returned to being a shadow among shadows. Rain arrives without warning, a mist at first, then a driving spray that soaks through your cloak and finds its way into every seam. Water pools in your boots, drips from your helmet, runs in icy rivulets down your neck. The captain sometimes walks the wall, his pace brisk, his coat heavy and lined with fur you could never afford. He nods at you, eyes scanning the horizon, and then vanishes again into the warmth of his quarters. You envy him, but only a little. Rank buys a thicker cloak, not a better fate. Your shift ends with no fanfare. You make your report, nothing to see, nothing to tell, and stumble down the stairs, numb from the cold and the silence. In the yard below, the world is beginning to wake, oblivious to your night's work. The city does not thank you. No one ever does. You do not do this for gratitude. You do it because you must. As you peel off your sodden cloak and wring the water from your gloves, you wonder if anyone would notice if you simply stopped showing up. Probably not. The city is full of men and women as replaceable as you. For now, you keep walking the walls, one stone at a time, alone with your thoughts and the biting wind. Such is the life of the city guard, a sentry against threats that never come, alone in the cold, watching a world that does not care whether you are there or not. If you ever wondered whether the life of a guard is one of drama and excitement, then your shift at the market square will quickly disabuse you of such fantasies. The market, in song and story, is the lively heart of a city where fortunes are made and secrets whispered. In reality, it is a grimy pit of squabbling vendors, frustrated shoppers, and opportunistic pickpockets, all jostling for room among the mud and filth. Your duty, as always, is to stand watch and look authoritative, a challenge given that the only authority you truly possess is the right to be ignored. Your arrival is met with as much indifference as the sunrise. You take up your post, back straight, hands clasped over your weapon, face frozen in what you hope is an expression of stern vigilance. No one seems impressed. A cluster of old women, hunched beneath layers of shawls, gives you a look that might be pity or possibly derision. A group of children runs past, laughing, and you check your belt automatically to be sure your purse is still there. The market is already noisy, though the sun has barely cleared the rooftops. Fishmongers and butchers shout their prices, hawking wares of dubious freshness. The bread sellers wave their loaves in the faces of passers-by, arguing over whose is less stale. Spice sellers hold up greasy pouches filled with uncertain powders, promising miracles to anyone gullible enough to listen. Here, commerce is not a civil exchange, but a battleground. Every transaction, a small war fought with barbed words and sharp elbows. You are meant to keep order, but the truth is that no one wants order. The chaos is the point. The sellers want to shout louder, not less. The buyers want to push closer, not stand in line. Your presence is little more than a nuisance, a reminder that the city has rules and that in theory, someone enforces them. Occasionally, the captain will appear, strutting through the square like a rooster, his boots gleaming and his voice cutting. When he is present, the merchants grow silent and deferential, but the moment he leaves, the cacophony swells anew, as if the market itself is mocking him. You patrol your section, boots squelching in mud and worse. There are puddles everywhere, some so dark you cannot see the bottom, and you quickly learn to avoid the ones that bubble. You do not want to know what lies beneath. Your armor, already uncomfortable, becomes a burden in the crush of bodies. Every jostle is an invitation to sweat, every step an opportunity to trip. The faces in the crowd blur together, hard, hungry faces, all carrying the same weight of worry. You see the same desperate mothers haggling for onions, the same gaunt men with baskets of shriveled apples, the same toothless old beggars, eyes bright with malice and cunning. You are supposed to watch for thieves, but everyone is a thief here in one way or another. Sometimes a child darts between stalls, nimble and quick, lifting a crust of bread or a wrinkled pear. You see it happen, and you look away. There are limits to what you can enforce, and besides, you would do the same in their place. Trouble, when it comes, is never grand or heroic. It is an argument over a copper coin, a fist fight over a barrel of fish, a cart turned over in the mud, blocking the path for all. You wade in, voice raised, breaking up fights with a firm hand, or, if necessary, a shove. Most back down at the sight of your armor, though you suspect it is less respect than exhaustion that drives them away. No one truly fears the guard. They simply have no time to waste. You watch for the bigger threats. The swindlers who prey on the slow-witted, the gang members who extort the weaker stall holders, the foreign merchants with more knives than merchandise. Occasionally, you catch one in the act. The captain expects you to make an example, and so you do, roughly, and with just enough force to discourage copycats. You haul the unlucky offender to the stocks, where the crowd jeers and pelts him with rotten fruit, as if your performance might satisfy their sense of justice. The captain nods his approval. The crowd quickly loses interest. There are other, quieter dangers. Every market has its secrets. You hear whispers of bribes paid for a choice spot, of guards looking the other way when a certain merchant offloads contraband. You are not so foolish as to speak of these things, but you see them. You see everything because it is your job to see, even if you are powerless to change what you see. Sometimes you catch yourself staring at the faces around you, wondering what they see when they look at you. A villain, an obstacle, Another poor soul trapped by circumstance and duty. The only certainty is that none of them see you as a hero. That part of the story died long ago. The hours drag by, the sun rising and falling through a haze of smoke and dust. Your feet ache, your head throbs from the noise, your eyes water from the stench. By late afternoon, the market begins to empty, the stalls packing up, the last arguments fading into weary resignation. You remain until the end, a silent witness to the city's endless struggle for survival. At dusk, you leave your post and make your way back through the winding streets. The market square is quiet now, but tomorrow it will wake again, and you will be there, watching, ignored, necessary, and unwanted in equal measure. Such is your duty. Such is your life. Every day, as a city guard, you hold to the naive hope that perhaps, just this once, everyone will obey the rules. You imagine a world where market sellers smile and nod, buyers line up patiently, and even the stray dogs wait their turn at the butcher's stalls. That world, of course, is a fantasy. In your world, the troublemakers arrive like clockwork, and your presence does little more than channel their mischief in new directions. The first sign of trouble is almost always the sudden hush, a ripple of tension that moves faster than a thrown stone. You feel it in the set of shoulders, the wary glances, the way children freeze and vanish into the crowd. Sometimes it is a group of swaggering young men, loud with drink and eager to prove themselves. Sometimes it is a lone thief, eyes darting, fingers restless, moving from stall to stall with too much purpose. Other times, it is just a sense, a thickness in the air, a collective breath held in anticipation of something ugly. Your instructions are clear: maintain order, protect property, arrest offenders. The reality is that you are always outnumbered, often outmatched, and never truly respected. As you approach a disturbance, you see the crowd part with reluctant curiosity. They do not clear a path out of respect, but out of a kind of cruel anticipation. No one likes the guard, but everyone likes a spectacle. A drunk has staggered into the bread seller's stall, sweeping loaves to the ground, slurring accusations about short measures and sour wheat. The bread seller, not one to take insult lightly, is already swinging his wooden paddle, striking the drunk across the shoulders. In moments, it becomes a scrum, bystanders joining in, not to help, but to land a kick or grab a loaf in the confusion. You wade in, shouting orders that are ignored, wielding your club with more hope than conviction. The fight breaks apart as quickly as it began. The bread seller nurses a bloody nose. The drunk spits out a tooth and lurches away. No one thanks you. The bread seller curses you for arriving too late. The drunk curses you for arriving at all. The crowd disperses, disappointed by the brevity of the entertainment. You are left to clean up the mess, returning the scattered loaves, apologizing to the other vendors, trying not to slip in the mud that is rapidly becoming a paste of blood and spilt ale. Your hands are shaking, but you do your best to appear calm. The next trouble is never far away. Sometimes the lawbreakers are more cunning. A pair of boys feigning a wrestling match, their hands nimble as spiders, picking pockets while their audience cheers. An old woman, so bent and shriveled she seems harmless, but whose quick fingers have lightened more than one merchant's purse. You catch her once, but the crowd turns on you. She is old, she is poor, she is their neighbor. You are the outsider, the oppressor, the one who wields the captain's authority like a bludgeon. The boos and jeers sting worse than any thrown vegetable. Worse yet are the organized thieves, the ones who work in silent coordination, melting away at the first hint of trouble, leaving you grasping empty air and a list of complaints. You try to keep your wits about you, to remember faces, to anticipate the next move, but you are only one pair of eyes. The market is a theater of distractions, and you are forever on the back foot. Every arrest you make comes at a price. The city's justice is not gentle. A man caught with his hand in the till is dragged to the stocks, where he faces the rotten fruit and sharp stones of his neighbors. A woman accused of cheating her customers is paraded through the streets, her shame magnified by every shout and jeer. You are their escort, their jailer, their symbol of a system that cares more for order than mercy. You tell yourself it is your duty, but it does not feel noble. It feels ugly, and you sense the eyes of the city judging you for it. The children, once so bold, now scatter at your approach. Old men mutter curses under their breath. Women turn away, pulling their shawls tight. You are alone in the crowd, marked by your badge and your battered armor, despised by those you are meant to protect. Sometimes the resentment boils over. Stones are thrown. A shopkeeper refuses to serve you or spits in your cup. You become a figure of hatred, a scapegoat for every injustice, every hunger, every fear that gnaws at the city's belly. You tell yourself it is not personal, but it always feels that way. After a long day of keeping the peace, you return to the barracks with a head full of jeers and bruises that will not show under your armor. The captain demands a report, but he does not want details. He wants numbers. How many arrested? How many punished? How much coin collected in fines? You give him what he wants, and he gives you nothing in return. Lying in your bunk, you stare at the cracked ceiling, wondering how you became so hated. You did not set the rules, you did not build the walls or write the laws. You are only a tool, dull, battered, necessary. You dream of escape, of a life where your face is not known, where your footsteps do not silence laughter or inspire curses. But in the morning, you will put on your armor again. You will stand in the market, watchful and unwelcome, and wait for the next lawbreaker to remind you just how easy it is to become the villain. If the market square is the public theater of justice, then the city dungeons are its backstage, a place the audience prefers not to see, and the actors would rather forget. Your role as a city guard often drags you into these depths, where the mask of law slips and reveals something older and colder beneath. The dungeons are beneath the oldest part of the city hall, carved out of damp stone and wood long since gone black with mold. The air is thick, humid, choked with the scent of mildew, iron, and the pungent aroma of fear. Rats scurry along the walls, their eyes glinting in the lamplight, unafraid of the men who share their home. The corridor is narrow, forcing you to stoop, your armor scraping along the slick stones, your breath echoing like a lost soul's complaint. Most of the time, you want nothing to do with this place. You tell yourself that your job is to keep order above ground, among the living, in the air and light. But the captain does not care for your preferences. When someone must be questioned, when a confession must be squeezed from flesh and bone, you are the hand that carries out the work. And so you descend the stairs, one at a time, carrying a lantern and a list of names, praying you will not recognize any of them. The prisoners are always the same, no matter the accusation. Some are hardened criminals, thieves, murderers, thugs hired by nameless masters. Most, however, are simply unlucky. A farmer caught stealing bread, a washerwoman accused of gossiping about the wrong merchant, a child whose only crime was being in the wrong place. Their faces blur together after a while, the fear and pleading and resignation all melding into a single silent scream. You are taught that the threat of the dungeon is enough. You are told that a stern word and a night in the dark will make any man talk. But the captain and the city fathers who pay him want results. They want names and confessions and the illusion of control. They do not care how those things are achieved. You begin simply, a question, asked in a quiet, reasonable tone. Who was with you? Where did you get the coin? Who helped you slip past the guards? The answers rarely satisfy, so you press harder. You raise your voice. You threaten. You let the silence stretch until it feels like another weight pressing down on their shoulders. Sometimes that is enough. More often, it is not. The tools of your trade are simple and brutal: ropes and sticks, iron weights, buckets of water, a table with straps for wrists and ankles. You know them all. You know how much pressure a wrist can take before it snaps, how long a man can hold his breath, how easily skin tears when wet. You know the sound a body makes when it gives in, the sharp crack, the low moan. These things become knowledge, like the pattern of the city streets or the weight of your sword. You do not think of yourself as cruel. You do not enjoy this work, but you do it because it is part of the uniform, part of the oath you swore, part of what keeps food in your belly and your family in their beds. You do not hate the prisoners. If you feel anything at all, it is pity, but even that fades with time. The dungeons have a way of grinding down your soul, polishing away the rough edges until all that is left is the cold, impersonal stone. The worst part is not the screams or the blood or the stink. It is the silence afterward, the way a man or a woman or a child sits slumped against the wall, empty and hollow, a vessel from which hope has been drained. You untie the ropes, you hand them water, you try to meet their eyes. Sometimes you even whisper an apology. It changes nothing. You are their tormentor, and they will never forget it. You return to the barracks after such work, feeling older, dirtier, less human. The others avoid your gaze. No one wants to talk about what happens below. Instead, you scrub your hands raw, change your shirt, and lie awake in the dark, listening to the city above, trying to convince yourself that you are different from the men and women you break. But the next day, or the next week, you are sent down again. Each trip is a little easier. The guilt dulls, the screams fade, the cold settles deeper in your bones. You learn not to care, or at least not to show that you care. The captain praises you for your results, gives you an extra crust of bread, a rare coin, a pat on the back that feels more like a shove. Above ground, people glance away when you walk past. They have heard stories, they have seen bruises and broken fingers. Children are warned to avoid your shadow. No one trusts you with their secrets, and you, in turn, keep none of your own. You are no longer surprised when you see your own reflection in a black pool of dungeon water and cannot remember when your eyes last looked kind. Compassion is a luxury for men who sleep soundly, and you have not done that in years. So you put on your armor, light your lantern, and wait for the next name to be called. The dungeon is always hungry. Mercy is always in short supply. Every morning, before you can begin your shift, you must submit to another ceremony in the city guard's dull and unromantic liturgy, the inspection of your weapons. The captain claims it is a matter of discipline, but you know it is mostly a matter of habit and suspicion. The armory is little more than a battered wooden shed at the back of the barracks yard, its door forever swollen by rain and battered by use. Inside, the smell of oiled metal mixes with the sour tang of old sweat and hopelessness. You line up, shuffling forward with the rest of the guards, waiting your turn. The quartermaster, a man who has not smiled in a decade, inspects your sword as if searching for a reason to curse you. He holds it up to the watery morning light, squinting at the edge. Sometimes he tests it on his thumbnail, which is thick and yellow and strangely intimidating. You know what he will find: nicks, dents, rust that creeps in no matter how much you polish, a blade that can barely cut cold cheese. Still, he grunts and hands it back. Good enough, he seems to say, for the kind of work you will be doing. You also carry a club, solid oak, worn smooth by hundreds of hands before yours. In many ways, you trust it more than your sword. The sword is for show, the club is for work. It is heavy, comforting, simple. Its language is plain and direct. No one mistakes the meaning of a club raised in anger. Your armor, too, is inspected, though with less ceremony. The quartermaster gives it a cursory glance, checking for obvious breaks, loose straps, missing plates. The truth is, much of the armor is a patchwork of old pieces, hammered and riveted together over the years. Nothing fits quite right. The helmet always presses on your brow. The greaves slip and bite at your calves. The breastplate hangs unevenly, tugging you off balance with every step. When you walk, you feel less like a warrior and more like a bell being rung for the city's amusement. The weight of these things is not only physical, every buckle, every strap, every lump of iron is a reminder of the danger you are meant to confront. You cannot help but notice, as you strap on your battered gear, that it offers as much comfort as a stone shroud. On the worst days, when the memory of violence is still fresh on your skin, your equipment feels less like protection and more like a promise, a guarantee that eventually the violence will find you again. You do not relish the prospect of fighting. The city has 1,000 dangers, riots, brawls, knife fights in alleys, the rare but unforgettable madness of a crowd turned hostile. Sometimes you dream of those stories where the guard draws his sword and the world trembles. In your life, the sword is more often drawn in trembling. The captain's voice, always urgent and irritable, rings in your ears. Be ready. Trouble can come at any time. But trouble, is not an if, but a when. You fear the moments when you are forced to draw steel. The violence is never clean. It is messy, desperate, ugly. Men and women do not fall like actors on a stage. They scream, bleed, fight for every breath. The first time you drove your sword into a living body, you felt nothing heroic, only sickness and a trembling that would not leave your hands for hours. Since then, you have learned to hide it, to mask fear with grim resignation. You are supposed to keep your blade sharp, but oil and time are scarce. Some guards mutter that a dull sword is a mercy, that it cannot kill as cleanly. Others say it is a curse, that in a real fight it will fail you, and your life will end not with a blow, but with a slow red wash of regret. Either way, you keep your edge as best you can and pray it will not be needed. There are days when the weapon feels heavier than usual, not just in your hand, but in your mind. You are not proud of what you have done with it, and you are afraid of what you may yet be called to do. The city is a cauldron, always threatening to boil over. It does not care if you are ready. It does not care if you are afraid. Your duty is not to be brave, only to be present. The other guards are much the same. In the armory, faces are blank, eyes dull, conversations short and flat. No one boasts of victories, no one describes their kills. Such things are left unspoken, ghosts that linger at the edge of every shift. When the time comes to raise a weapon, each of you does so out of necessity, not out of pride. You are all, in your own way, waiting for the inevitable, the day when the violence is greater than your skill, when the armor cracks, when the sword slips, when you do not come back from the patrol. There is an old joke among the guards. If you die with your sword in your hand, at least they will not call you a coward. But even this has a hollow ring. Most deaths here are not heroic. They are sudden, senseless, witnessed by no one who cares. You do not want a glorious end. You want no end at all. You want to survive another day, to return to the barracks, to strip off your armor and your fears, even if only for a night. And so, every morning, you inspect your weapons, check your armor, say nothing, and step out into the city with a heart made heavy by the certainty that sooner or later you will be called to use them. You do not pray for courage. You pray only for another day in which it will not be necessary. If there is one truth to the life of a city guard, it is that hunger is the only certainty. You are always hungry before a shift, after a shift, sometimes even during a shift when the aroma of frying onions drifts from a nearby tavern and taunts your empty belly. But nothing stokes the flames of resentment in your soul quite like mealtime in the barracks. Breakfast, if it can be called that, is served just after dawn when you are still shivering from the cold and the aches of restless sleep. The guards gather in the mess hall, a low ceilinged room with benches older than most of its occupants and a lingering, stubborn aroma that suggests something died beneath the floorboards long ago. The cook, a woman with arms like tree trunks and a scowl that could curdle milk, ladles out bowls of porridge. The porridge is gray, watery, flecked with something that might be oats or might be the sweepings from the storeroom floor. Occasionally, a lucky bowl will contain a lump, a treasure if it is bread, a nightmare if it is gristle. There is no ceremony, no prayer, not even much conversation. You eat quickly, spoon clinking against the cracked bowl, eyes darting over your neighbor's portions. You have seen men fight over an extra crust, and you have seen men go hungry because they were too slow. The captain eats in his own room, or not at all. If he ever joins you, it is only to make a point, usually about discipline, never about food. Lunch, if your shift allows, is much the same. Sometimes, after a hard morning, you are granted a wedge of cheese so hard it could serve as a weapon, or a piece of salted fish so tough you gnaw it like a dog with a bone. Bread, always stale, is a luxury. Fresh loaves are for festivals, and only if the city fathers are feeling generous. The occasional stew is ladled from a pot that simmers endlessly, growing thicker and stranger with each new addition. By the end of the week, no one can guess what was in it at the start. You learn quickly to lower your expectations. A bad meal is still a meal. A missed meal means you will feel every step of your patrol, every jolt of your armor, every pang of guilt or anger, tenfold. You trade for scraps when you can. A sliver of smoked meat, a handful of nuts, a bruised apple snatched from the captain's table. The older guards hoard their secrets, hiding away better fare for lean days, or selling a bite to desperate newcomers. Evenings are worse. After a long day, you dream of roast meat, of pies filled with sweet apples or spiced pork, of wine that does not taste like vinegar, and ale that does not make you sick. What you get is a bowl of cabbage soup, thick with leaves and stalks, sometimes blessed with a shred of bacon if the cook is in a good mood. The bread is harder than your boots. You soak it in the soup and hope your teeth hold out. Sometimes there is a communal wheel of cheese, crusted with mold, which is carefully divided among the hungriest. You learn to eat around the blue spots, but in truth, you hardly notice anymore. There are stories, of course, about what goes into the stew. Rats, say some. Horseshoes, say others. You do not care. Hunger makes philosophers of you all, and after a day in the market square or a night on the wall, you would eat your own boots if only the cook would agree to boil them. Drinks are no better. Water is drawn from a well that sometimes tastes of iron, sometimes of rot. On rare days, you are issued a cup of weak ale, thin, bitter, and as warming as rainwater. The lucky guards, or those with a friend among the smugglers, might have a flask of something stronger hidden under their bunks. You try not to ask questions. You try not to let envy show on your face. The meal is rarely quiet. Someone always grumbles, always curses the cook, the city fathers, the captain, the weather. Laughter is rare and sharp, reserved for jokes so black they might stain the air. Once, a fight broke out over a disputed turnip. The loser wore a black eye for a week and had his rations cut in half for disturbing the peace. The winner got the turnip and little else. After eating, you scrape your bowl clean and return it to the barrel of filthy water that serves as a wash basin. The scullery boy, too young and too thin, scrubs at the dishes with a rag that seems to spread more grease than it removes. No one volunteers for kitchen duty, but everyone dreads being assigned it. It is said that the cook keeps a list of complaints, and that the loudest are always next in line to peel potatoes or scrub cauldrons. When the meal is done, you feel no satisfaction, only the dull reassurance of a stomach not entirely empty. You shuffle back to your bunk, stretch out, and try to remember the taste of a real meal. Sometimes, when the city is quiet, you dream of feasts, of sweet fruits and warm bread, of laughter that does not sound desperate or forced. But in the morning, the same gray porridge waits for you, and the same rough hands ladle it out. Hunger, like duty, is always faithful. There are those who believe that the city is safer by night, tucked beneath a blanket of darkness and quiet. Those people have never walked its streets as a city guard. For you, the coming of night is not a gentle descent into sleep, but the beginning of another struggle, a battle against things you cannot always see, let alone name. As dusk bleeds away and the last scraps of light cling to the rooftops, the streets change. The market empties, the windows shudder, the doors are bolted with an urgency born of experience. A hush settles, but it is not peaceful. It is the hush of a beast holding its breath, listening for movement, waiting to pounce. You begin your night patrol with a partner. If the captain is generous, or alone, if someone has called in sick, or simply vanished into the city's shadows, your torch sputters and flickers, the flames struggling against the damp. The light it casts is thin, wavering, making the shadows dance. Every step you take is echoed by the sound of your own boots and, sometimes, the drip of water from a gutter or the scurrying of rats. It is a city of echoes at night, and most of them do not belong to you. You walk the prescribed route, eyes darting to every alleyway and overhang. There are corners that never quite lose their darkness, even at noon, but by night they seem bottomless. You imagine shapes moving within them, and sometimes you are right. The night belongs to those with nothing to lose: thieves, desperate men, women running from debts or husbands, children feral as stray dogs. Your orders are to keep the peace, but what peace is there in a city where hunger and fear breed like lice? Sometimes you hear laughter, sharp and brittle, a joke told to keep the dark at bay. Other times, a scream tears the quiet, echoing off stone walls and vanishing before you can reach it. By the time you round the corner, there is nothing to find: a broken bottle, a dark patch on the ground, the distant slap of running feet. You develop senses you did not know you possessed. You feel the cold creep in under your armor, the weight of eyes watching from windows and doorways. You smell the sourness of spilt beer, the sharp tang of urine, the sweeter, heavier reek of blood. Every sound is a warning, every silence a trap. Most nights, the city simply watches you, silent and unreadable. You pass beggars huddled in doorways, wrapped in rags, their eyes shining in the torchlight. Some beg for mercy, some for coin, a few only for the small dignity of being left alone. You wish you could give them what they ask, but your own purse is as light as your patience. You move on, always moving, because standing still is an invitation for trouble. The invisible threats are the worst. You know the faces of the local toughs, the ringleaders and bruisers who haunt the taverns and alleys. You know the names of the pickpockets and the fences, the drunks who brawl for the sake of something to do. But it is the unknowns, the figures who slip through the cracks, the hands that move faster than your eye, the eyes that look right through you, that haunt your dreams. Sometimes you catch a thief in the act, and there is a brief, ugly struggle. You use your club, or your fists, or your boots, because your sword is for show and your heart for surviving. Most nights, the thief gets away, and you pretend not to notice. There is paperwork to file when you catch someone, and paperwork is a kind of punishment no one deserves, least of all you. The worst nights are the quiet ones, when nothing seems to happen at all. You find yourself jumping at shadows, your nerves stretched to breaking. You imagine every cat is a prowler, every loose shutter the herald of an uprising. You remember the stories told in the barracks, the ghosts that walk the old part of town, the curse on the well, the mad woman who laughs at the moon. You know these are stories, but the dark is a fertile ground for fear. You check the locks on the city gates, your torch sputtering low. You exchange a few words with the gatekeeper, an old man with a club and a single tooth, who tells you for the 100th time that he has seen something moving out beyond the walls. You nod and promise to keep watch, knowing you will see nothing, but also knowing that sometimes the nothing is more dangerous than any something you can name. Midway through your patrol, you pause at the crossroads where two alleys meet. Here, the shadows press in on all sides. You hear footsteps behind you and turn, heart pounding, to see only a stray dog, ribs showing, nose to the ground. You toss it the heel of your bread, and it vanishes as quickly as it came. Your shift drags on. The torch burns down, the oil runs low. You pace your route again, passing the same shuttered houses, the same silent doors, the same unsleeping fears. You tell yourself it is nearly over, that dawn will bring relief, but you know dawn only brings a different kind of struggle. At last, you reach the barracks, the sky beginning to pale. You stamp out your torch and hang up your cloak, the chill settling into your bones. The city is quiet again for now, but you know better than to trust the quiet. The real threats are the ones you never see, the ones that watch and wait and make you wonder every night if you will be the one who disappears into the darkness. And so you lie on your bunk, armor half off, boots still muddy, listening for the footsteps you hope will never come. The city sleeps, but you do not. You never do. You would think that a city like yours, so battered by hunger, disease, and the slow grind of poverty, would be too exhausted for rebellion. But you learn, as a city guard, that misery does not pacify, it ferments, it grows teeth, and there is always the threat, the whisper, the rumor of a rumor that soon the people will rise. You feel it first in the air, a tension as thick as the city's ever present stink. There are new faces in the market, strangers with guarded eyes and close conversations. Old friends suddenly become cautious in their greetings, and people who once spat at your feet now cross the street rather than meet your gaze. You are not comforted by this avoidance. You are unsettled. When a city's hatred grows quiet, it is only because it is waiting for the right moment to scream. The captain, never a gentle man, paces the barracks with an edge sharper than his sword. His orders grow terse and suspicious. You are to report any unusual gatherings, any unfamiliar faces, any whisper of discontent. But the city is made of discontent. It seeps from every crack in the cobbles, every empty belly, every uncollected corpse in the alleys. How do you report what you see in every direction? Rumors multiply with astonishing speed. There is talk of meetings in the cellars of the tannery, or of messages passed by urchins under the guise of street games. The bakers are hoarding flour, someone claims, and the miller is smuggling grain to the cause. A tanner's apprentice has been heard reciting seditious poems in the market. Even the priests, those weary shepherds of weary souls, are said to murmur prayers for justice a little louder than usual. You are ordered to patrol with extra vigilance. Your route takes you through neighborhoods you have always dreaded, the narrowest, darkest streets where even the sun seems afraid to enter. Here, the windows are closed and the doors barred, but the silence feels heavier, more expectant. You sense eyes watching from cracks in the shutters, measuring your every step. One afternoon, you break up a gathering near the city well. The crowd is slow to disperse, their faces shuttered, their bodies tense as bowstrings. You swing your club, shout your warnings, and they melt away, but not far. They wait at the corners, in the alleys, their voices low and urgent. You know that nothing has changed, except that now they are angry and afraid, instead of just angry. The threat of uprising turns every guard's heart into a knot of nerves. You watch your own comrades just as closely as the townsfolk. Some guards have families in the city, brothers or cousins or lovers who might be swept up in whatever madness is coming. Others, the ones with no one, seem almost eager for violence, as if a riot might at least be a break from monotony. You try to prepare, you clean your weapons, check your armor, practice the formations the captain insists will hold the line. But in the small hours of the morning, you know these things will not save you. The city is a living thing, and when it decides to turn on you, your helmet and club will be as useful as a spoon in a flood. The captain begins nightly briefings, each more grim than the last. He warns that there may be traitors among the guards, that anyone found shirking duty or sympathizing with the malcontents will be dealt with harshly. The old camaraderie is gone, replaced by suspicion and the sharp eyes of informers. You trust no one, and no one trusts you. One night, as you patrol the market, you see a group of children chalking strange symbols on the walls. You chase them off, but the marks remain cryptic, defiant, a challenge you cannot answer. A day later, the baker's window is smashed and his flour stolen. The captain calls it proof of sedition. You call it hunger. You hear stories of other cities, uprisings crushed with blood, city squares filled with bodies, guards who disappeared in the night. You wonder sometimes if it is better to be hated for what you do or feared for what you might do. In the end, it makes little difference. You are the city's shield and its club, the barrier between order and chaos, even if you suspect that order and chaos are simply two names for the same beast. The days stretch into weeks, the tension mounts, every rumor is investigated, every face scrutinized. You walk your patrol, your club heavy in your hand, your armor heavier on your shoulders. You pray, though you have forgotten how, that the city's anger will burn itself out, that the promise of violence will fade with the fog. But each day brings a new slight, a new injury, a new reason for the city to remember its pain. You do not know when it will happen or how. You only know that it will. The captain says you must be ready, but you know there is no way to be ready. Not truly, not for this. When the uprising comes, it will not look like the stories. There will be no banners, no stirring speeches, just a snap, a scream, a crowd that does not run, and you, standing alone in the center, wondering which side you belong on. Until then, you wait and watch and wonder how long a man can live with this kind of fear and what kind of man he becomes at the end of it. The city gate is meant to be a symbol of strength and order, a barrier against all that lies beyond. For you, Stationed there by the captain's command, it is mostly a monument to boredom and suspicion. Still, when word comes that someone important is expected, an emissary, a merchant prince, or a petty noble with a taste for theatrics, the whole guard is set buzzing like a kicked beehive. Your instructions are simple and soul crushingly clear. Nothing gets in or out without your inspection. You and your fellow guards are meant to embody vigilance and authority. In truth, you embody fatigue, sunburn, and an impatience bordering on open mutiny. The road before the gate winds through fields now barren from too many harvests, too little rest. Beyond, there is nothing but the faint hope that somewhere out there, life is easier, or at least different. You clean your armor to the captain's standard, which is to say, you scrub at rust until your knuckles are raw and pretend not to notice the patches that will never shine. You stand in a line, shoulders back, helmet low, sweating or shivering, depending on the season, as the captain paces up and down, barking instructions and threats. There will be no mistakes today, he warns, as if the world is not made entirely of mistakes. Yours, his, everyone's. Waiting for an important visitor means endless hours of nothing. You watch the horizon for dust clouds, the sign of an approaching party. You watch travelers plead and barter their way through, farmers with carts loaded with wilted greens, and merchants whose coins always seem to find the right hands. You watch and you wait, and you try to look fierce rather than hungry. The townspeople avoid the gate when you are posted there. Their glances are quick, their exchanges with you clipped and formal. If the captain is nearby, everyone is on their best behavior, but the moment he turns his back, the complaints begin. The new tax, the delay, the indignity of being searched by men in armor who are barely trusted with broom handles, let alone swords. Sometimes you are required to enforce the proper protocol for welcoming the city's betters. You stand in formation while the trumpeters sound their cracked, triumphant notes, and the captain reads a speech from a sheet so old it flakes in the wind. The visitor, arriving on a horse too clean for this city, barely glances at the assembled guards. He is already looking past you at the city's walls, its streets, its secrets. To him, you are just another piece of scenery, a moving statue with bad posture and worse manners. There are, of course, the inspections. Every cart is searched, every sack poked with a stick, every bottle uncorked and sniffed for contraband. Some travelers fume, others plead ignorance. A few try to bribe their way through with bread or cheese or a handful of coins. You are not paid enough to refuse, but you are watched too closely to accept. You take your time, making a show of diligence, knowing the captain is never far away. You find nothing but the usual moldy onions, cracked pottery, the occasional rabbit wriggling under a cloak. The captain, meanwhile, struts and shouts, hoping to impress the important visitor with a display of discipline. It is theater, and everyone knows it. The visitor's guards are better armed, better dressed, better paid. Their armor fits, their weapons gleam, Their faces betray nothing but mild contempt for your ragged assembly. You stand a little straighter, trying not to notice how your boots pinch, how your helmet slips forward, how the visitor's eyes flick past you as if you were part of the wall. At last, the important guest arrives, and the gate ceremony unfolds as planned. You hold your post, sweating under your armor, your mind wandering to the stale bread waiting for you at the barracks, the calluses growing on your hands. You wonder, not for the first time, if anyone actually believes in the rituals you perform, or if they are just another way for the powerful to remind you of your place. When the visitor and his entourage finally pass, the captain heaves a sigh of relief and claps you on the shoulder as if you have accomplished something grand. You say nothing. You know that once the show is over, it will be you and your fellow guards left to clean up the mess, close the gate, and argue with the next angry merchant about why his wagon must be searched again. The hours crawl by. The sun sets or the clouds gather, whichever comes first, and the gate resumes its usual rhythm, slow, monotonous, and indifferent. You return to your post, eyes half open, back aching, the sense of importance already fading like the captain's speech in the wind. In the end, guarding the gate for important visitors is less about glory and more about standing in one place for hours, pretending not to care that you have become as much a part of the city's machinery as the hinges on the door. Tomorrow, you know, there will be another inspection, another parade, another round of pointless ceremony, and you will be there, armor dull, eyes weary, wondering what, if anything, you are really keeping out. For all the talk of vigilance, most days pass without excitement. But when trouble does come, it arrives with a suddenness that steals the air from your lungs and shatters the monotony. It is almost always the same: a shout, a crash, the frantic cry of "Stop, thief!" that ripples through the market or echoes along an alleyway, and suddenly you are moving before you even realize it. The chase is always chaos. The streets, which seemed empty a moment ago, fill with obstacles, carts, stray dogs, children who appear from nowhere and then vanish, piles of refuse that send you stumbling. Your armor, meant for protection, now serves as a cruel handicap. Every step you take is a contest between your will and the weight of your breastplate. Every sharp turn, a reminder that the straps on your greaves are too tight or not tight enough. You try to run as you once did in your youth, swift and light, but the years and the burdens of your profession cling to you like a second skin. The criminal, boy or man, woman or girl, it makes little difference, always seems to know these streets better than you. They slip through gaps between buildings, dart around corners, vault over crates and fences as if they have wings. You, on the other hand, thunder after them like a war horse with a limp, drawing stares and curses from the townsfolk as you trample their wares and knock over buckets of water. Every muscle in your body screams for rest. Every breath is a ragged, burning effort. Your helmet slides down over your eyes. Your sword hammers at your hip. Sweat blinds you as surely as the grime of the city. You shout, out of habit more than hope. Stop, in the name of the law, but no one stops, least of all the one you are chasing. Your voice is lost in the clamor, drowned out by the thud of your own boots and the gasps of those you shove aside. Sometimes another guard tries to join the pursuit, but just as often they are too far behind or too wise to bother. Most of the time, you are alone, running a race you are never meant to win. The chase may last minutes or only seconds, but it always feels like an hour. By the time you catch up, if you catch up, your arms are trembling, your heart pounding like a blacksmith's hammer, your lungs aflame. You grab the fleeing figure, wrestling them to the ground, your grip weak and uncertain. Sometimes you slip on the muck, sometimes you trip on a stone, sometimes the criminal twists free and is gone again, lost in the labyrinth of streets and alleys. When you do manage to hold on, you find yourself as breathless and broken as your quarry. The arrest itself is rarely clean. You are covered in sweat, mud, and whatever else the street decided to offer you that day. Your prisoner struggles, curses, sometimes weeps. Bystanders jeer, or worse, urge the criminal on. There is little satisfaction in the capture, only the knowledge that now you must drag them, half carrying, half shoving, back through the gawking crowd to the nearest holding cell. You know already that the captain will be unimpressed. Either the criminal is too small to be worth punishing, or too well connected to be punished at all. Every pursuit leaves its mark. Your body collects bruises like a miser collects coins. Your joints ache from impacts. Your hands are scraped raw. Your uniform torn in new and inventive places. There are days when you limp back to the barracks, cursing every cobblestone in the city. There are nights when you cannot sleep, your legs throbbing with pain and your lungs refusing to fill without a cough. You begin to recognize the same faces, the same desperate eyes again and again. The thieves are not villains from a storybook, but neighbors, cousins, children you once saw playing in the square. Hunger makes criminals of them, and fatigue makes a monster of you. You start to dread the shouts, the sudden rush, the sprint that always leaves you emptier than before. Occasionally, a chase goes wrong. You slip and fall, twist an ankle, crack your head on a wall. The city's laughter is cruel and long lasting. The captain is even less forgiving, docking your pay for the embarrassment. Worse, some criminals fight back. You feel the sting of a thrown stone, the cut of a hidden knife, the desperate fury of someone with nothing left to lose. Each scar you carry is another memory, another lesson that the streets belong to those who know them best. And yet, you keep running because that is what is expected, because there is no choice, because the thought of letting someone get away is somehow more unbearable than the pain of pursuit. You run because you are the law, and the law does not rest, even when your body demands it. When the chase ends, success or failure, you return to your post, your chest still heaving, your clothes filthy, your spirit smaller than when you began. The city moves on, indifferent. Another day, another thief, another chase. You wash your wounds as best you can, mend your uniform, and try to ignore the laughter that follows you down the street. And always you pray that tomorrow will bring a quieter day, though you know it will not. If there is a defining feature of your existence as a city guard, it is not the constant threat of violence, nor the endless cycle of hunger and exhaustion. It is the simple, everyday knowledge that you are hated. The people do not disguise it. Most days, you suspect, they would not know how if they tried. You are meant to serve as their protector, their shield against chaos. In theory, the city's laws and your club are what stand between the people and anarchy. But the line between order and oppression is as thin as the soup in your mess bowl. For most, you are not a bulwark but a threat, a necessary evil at best, and at worst, a willing instrument of misery. Every interaction is thick with resentment. When you walk through the market, mothers pull their children closer, not in the hope that you will protect them, but in the fear that you might single them out for some minor offense, real or imagined. Merchants watch you with narrowed eyes, their greetings empty of warmth. You hear them whisper as you pass, voices low, but not low enough. That one broke Jacob's arm. That one dragged Marta's boy away. That one took a bribe and still turned us over to the captain. You wish you could deny these stories. Some are lies, but many are true. In a city as hungry and desperate as this, kindness is the first thing lost. You have done ugly things, enforced taxes, evicted families, broken up gatherings that were only guilty of hope. You have arrested men for stealing bread, women for speaking too boldly, children for running too fast. You know the law is a creature of those who pay for its keeping, not those who suffer under it. Sometimes, a face in the crowd reminds you of the people you once tried to protect. A woman with a child's hand wrapped in hers. An old man who limps along the gutter, head bowed but gaze defiant. You remember a time, years ago, when you might have stopped to help them. Now you move on, eyes fixed forward, club heavy at your side. You have learned that even the smallest act of mercy can turn against you. The city keeps a ledger of grudges longer than any law book, and forgiveness is in shorter supply than food. The children, especially, fear you. Once you tried to joke with them, to show them your sword, or let them touch the battered crest on your helmet. Now they scatter at your approach, vanishing into doorways and alleyways. Their games become silent, their laughter dries up. You see yourself reflected in their wide, untrusting eyes, not as a person, but as a warning. Sometimes someone dares to defy you openly. A vendor refuses to answer your questions. A neighbor blocks your path. A gang of youths throws stones from a rooftop, their jeers echoing long after you have driven them away. Each act of defiance makes your job harder, but part of you cannot blame them. If you had been born to their lot, would you not do the same? Would you not resent the hand that feeds you scraps with one hand and strikes you with the other? Hatred is only part of it. Fear, too, clings to every corner. The dungeons have a reputation, and every guard is marked by it. When you speak, your voice carries the memory of screams from below. When you enter a home, the shadows stretch longer, the air grows colder. You see mothers cross themselves, and fathers grip the handles of their tools, measuring you against their own desperation. You learn to armor your heart as well as your body. You stop seeking conversation, avoid meeting eyes, give orders in a voice as flat as the plains beyond the city walls. You tell yourself it is easier this way, but the loneliness eats at you all the same. Some guards turn cruel, reveling in their power, finding comfort in being feared if they cannot be loved. Others withdraw, saying as little as possible, waiting for the day their service ends or their luck runs out. There are rare moments when the wall cracks. A child, too young to know better, asks your name. An old woman thanks you for helping her across a muddy street. You cling to these scraps of decency, hoarding them as a starving man hoards crumbs. But the city is quick to remind you of your place. For every thank you, there are a dozen curses, 100 sidelong glares, 1,000 reminders that you do not belong. At night, lying on your bunk, you replay the day's encounters in your mind. The faces blur together, some sullen, some frightened, all wary. You remember the things you have done, the things you have been ordered to do, and the things you have refused to do but watched happen anyway. You wonder if there is a way to earn back trust, or if that door is closed forever. You tell yourself you are only doing your duty, that someone must keep order, but duty is a poor companion. It does not shield you from loneliness or from hate. It only marks you out, day after day, as the boundary between the people and the pain that surrounds them. In the end, you are neither villain nor hero. You are simply there, hated and feared, because that is what the city needs, or at least what it thinks it needs. The songs they sing in the taverns about brave city guards never mention the rain. They do not mention the mud either, or the way the two together conspire to make your shift an ordeal fit for the damned. If there is a romance to your service, it has long since been washed down the gutter and replaced by something far more slippery and cold. You wake to the sound of water drumming against the roof, relentless as a drum beat in a funeral march. Your first thought is to pray for the rain to stop, but prayers have never worked here. Not for you, not for the city. So you sigh, pull on your damp clothes. Nothing ever really dries in the barracks, and slide your feet into boots still lined with yesterday's mud. Outside, the city looks even more miserable than usual. The cobbled streets have become a network of streams, the mud rising between the stones and clinging to every passing foot. The gutters are choked with debris, bits of straw, broken crockery, something unidentifiable that you hope is only a dead rat. The rain is cold, sharp, and carries with it the stench of everything it touches. You pull your cloak tighter, though it does little more than move the wet from one part of you to another. The captain, of course, is not impressed by rain. He expects his guards to patrol the same as any other day, perhaps more so, since trouble loves bad weather. Drunks are more reckless, thieves more desperate, and tempers, already short, snap like rotted branches. He barks his orders from beneath a heavy oilskin, the only dry spot in sight, then sends you out into the deluge. Your patrol route takes you through the worst of it, the alleyways where the water pools knee deep, the market square where the stalls are abandoned and the canvas covers flap like the sails of a sinking ship. Every step is a battle. The mud grabs at your boots, trying to pull you down. The rain seeps through your armor, down your back, under your collar. Your sword belt sags, and your club is so slick it nearly slips from your fingers. You are not alone in your misery. The few souls braving the streets are hunched, faces hidden beneath hoods or baskets. Vendors glare at you from beneath makeshift shelters, their wares already ruined by water and mud. Children, undeterred by the weather, splash through the puddles, shrieking with laughter until a parent yanks them away and scolds them for daring to be happy. Even the stray dogs seem offended, shaking themselves dry and slinking off into the shadows. The city's stone walls and towers, so grand in the sunlight, are now streaked with rivulets of brown and green, their cracks oozing moss and slime. You press on, each corner bringing a new hazard. A drunken sailor, soaked to the skin, bellows a challenge at anyone foolish enough to answer. Two apprentices fight over a dropped loaf of bread, slipping and sliding in the muck. You break them up, more out of habit than hope, and send them on their way, both cursing you and the rain in equal measure. You think often of the poets and storytellers who speak of heroic guards standing watch through all adversity. You wonder if any of them have ever spent a night in your boots. The truth is, there is no nobility in shivering under a broken eave, water running down your spine, mud sucking at your feet. There is only the endless, grinding discomfort and the knowledge that you must endure it because no one else will. As the hours pass, the rain finds new ways to torment you. Water trickles down your back, pools at your ankles, soaks into the very marrow of your bones. Your hands grow numb, your lips blue. You try to wipe your face with a sodden sleeve, but it is like trying to dry yourself in the river. You lose track of time. Patrol becomes a blur of gray skies, gray water, gray faces. At last, your shift ends, and you stagger back to the barracks. The floor is slick with mud, the air thick with the smell of wet wool and disappointment. You peel off your clothes and wring them out over a bucket, watching the brown water swirl and wondering if anything will ever be clean again. Your fingers are wrinkled, your feet blistered, your spirit as soggy as your cloak. No one speaks as you eat your meal, cold bread, watery stew, the same as always. Conversation is as washed away as the warmth from your limbs. You stare at the flickering fire, trying to remember what it feels like to be dry. The poets will keep singing of heroism and romance, of valiant guards and glorious deeds. Let them. You know better. You know the truth is found in the mud, in the rain, in the endless, thankless task of enduring whatever the city throws at you next. Tomorrow, the rain may stop, or it may not. Either way, your duty will remain as constant and unyielding as the weather, and you too will remain sodden, cold, and unromantic as ever. For every night the city seems quiet, there are two more when the streets turn restless and blood is spilled somewhere in the darkness. You have learned that your job as a guard does not end when the fight is over. That is only the beginning. In the gray, unkind hours before dawn, you and your fellows must deal with the aftermath, the bodies left behind by violence no one wants to claim. You never get used to it, not truly. The first time, your hands shook and your breakfast threatened to return as you stared down at the crumpled shape sprawled in the alley. You had known the man, or thought you did, a familiar face from the market, a drinker with a fondness for bad jokes and worse ale. Now, he was only another burden for the city to forget. It falls to you and your comrades to gather the bodies. The captain assigns the task without ceremony, barely glancing at the night's report. There is no fanfare, no words of comfort. You are handed a rough stretcher, a battered cart, a rag to cover the face. Sometimes, if the victim was known to someone with coin or power, the family arrives to claim the body before you do. More often, the job is yours alone. You become practiced at the work, though never expert. The weight is always awkward, the angles unnatural. Bodies do not yield gracefully. They are heavy in all the wrong ways, stiff or boneless, cold or still faintly warm. Your armor clanks with every step. Your boots slip in pools of filth that you try not to identify. The city is silent, but you imagine every window is watching, every shutter concealing eyes that judge and remember. Sometimes the bodies are marked with the simple, brutal signatures of knives, clubs, or fists. Other times you find signs that speak of darker things. A throat cut so expertly you wonder if the killer once served as a butcher, hands bound with a cord too fine for common thieves, faces frozen in terror. You carry these images with you long after the work is done, uninvited guests at your midnight thoughts. There are rules to follow, of course. The captain insists on records, names, wounds, the time and place. You kneel in the muck, making hurried notes by lantern light, trying to ignore the way the blood stains your sleeves. The city fathers want statistics, order, proof that someone is in control. You know it is all a lie. The dead do not care for paperwork. The bodies are taken to the charnel house, a squat building on the city's edge that smells of smoke and old bones. There, the keepers, pale men and women with little to say and even less to feel, accept your burden without comment. Sometimes they ask a name, Sometimes they do not. The bodies are sorted, those to be buried, those to be burned, those left unclaimed to be forgotten altogether. You try not to think about what happens after. You try not to remember the faces or the lives behind them. You tell yourself it is a kindness, a duty, something necessary and honest. But there is no honesty in how quickly the city forgets its dead, how soon the streets are swept clean, the blood washed away by the next morning's rain. It is not always strangers. Once you found a fellow guard, throat cut, badge stolen, boots missing. You recognized him by his crooked nose and the way his hair curled at his temples. The captain made a speech about sacrifice, about duty, about the dangers of your calling. Then he was and then ordered the body burned, and the barracks ate their supper in silence that night. For some, the sight of death breeds callousness. They laugh at the worst wounds, wager on the names of the next to fall, trade stories about the strangest things found in the pockets of the dead. Others turn inward, counting their breaths, marking the days, waiting for their own turn on the stretcher. You learn not to judge. Everyone survives the only way they know how. After every cleanup, you return to the barracks. You strip off your bloodied clothes, wash in water that turns pink and then gray. The stench clings to your skin, the memory to your mind. You eat in silence, sleep in fits, dream of shadows and alleys and faces you can no longer name. In the morning, the city is awake and indifferent. The market opens, children run through the streets, the sun shines on puddles that have no memory of what happened the night before. You walk your patrol, eyes scanning the crowd, half expecting to see the dead among the living, nodding in greeting or scowling in warning. But they are gone, swept away like everything else the city cannot use. You keep moving because there is no other choice. The fights will come again, the bodies will pile up, and you will carry them all, if not in your arms, then somewhere deeper where no one else can see. If there is any time in your life as a guard that is worse than the long, grueling hours of duty, it is the silence that waits for you in the cracks between them. For in those empty stretches between patrols, when the city is momentarily someone else's problem, you are left with nothing but your own company, and there is no hiding from yourself. You finish your shift exhausted, body aching, nerves raw from the endless parade of petty cruelties and sudden violence. Your boots leave heavy prints in the mud as you trudge back to the barracks, past shuttered windows and faces that turn away. Sometimes your fellow guards walk beside you, but rarely do you speak. The silence is not camaraderie, nor is it hostility. It is simply the heaviness of too much being felt and too little being said. Once inside, you strip out of your armor, the ritual familiar and uncomfortably intimate. Each buckle released, each strap unfastened, is a small surrender. Your battered helmet is set aside, your sword unbelted, your club laid across your bunk. For a moment you stand there in your sweat-soaked shirt, feeling the air cool your skin, listening to the sounds of the barracks, snoring, coughing, the faint scrape of boots across stone. If you are lucky, you find a moment of peace. If not, your mind quickly fills the silence with memories you would rather forget. Some of the younger guards fill their off hours with raucous laughter and loud boasts, trying to drown out the city's misery with too much ale and not enough sense. You tried that once, but the noise only made your loneliness louder. Each shouted story a reminder that none of you are really listening, not to each other and not to yourselves. The laughter is thin and forced, the camaraderie brittle as old bones. You sometimes think of writing letters, home if you have one, or to a friend now gone from the city, or perhaps to no one at all. But words fail you, and the act of writing feels as hollow as the rest. You have seen too much, and there are not enough words in any language to describe what it means to be tired in your bones and soul. So you fill your time as best you can. Some guards take to mending their gear, endlessly patching torn leather and rusted buckles, as if repair were a way of restoring hope. Others sit by the fire, staring into the flames, as if searching for something on the far side of the heat. You read, if there is anything to read, old scraps of news, lists of names, prayers scrawled on stained parchment. You play dice, shuffle cards, or whittle wood with a dull knife, shaping nothing in particular. There are moments, especially at night, when the loneliness is a physical thing. It sits on your chest, tightens your throat, fills your ears with the sound of your own breathing. The barracks are crowded, but true solitude does not care for numbers. You lie on your bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain or the laughter outside, feeling the weight of every mistake, every unkindness, every silence that has ever been forced upon you. You have friends, or people who once might have become friends, but the job strips those bonds bare. No one wants to talk about the bodies, the screams, the faces of those you have arrested or beaten or simply failed to save. Each guard is an island, separated by walls thicker than stone. You know their names, their habits, their favorite curses, but you do not know their fears. You do not ask because you do not want them to ask you in return. Sometimes, in the darkest hours, you walk the city alone, off duty, but unable to rest. The streets are different then, quieter, stranger, almost peaceful. The city's ugliness is hidden in shadows, the noise of daily struggle replaced by the soft hush of wind and distant waves. You wonder who else walks in the darkness, searching for something or running from it. Occasionally, a memory surfaces, a warm kitchen in a home far away, a voice calling your name, the sound of real laughter untainted by fear. It hurts to remember, but you clutch the memory close, for it is all you have. You think of the life you might have had, the choices you might have made, and wonder if things could have been different. Perhaps they never could. You try not to resent those who pass their loneliness differently. Some find comfort in each other, stolen moments beneath the barracks blankets, or whispered words on the wall walk at midnight. Others bury themselves in routine, their every motion mechanical, deliberate, a bulwark against thought. You envy them sometimes, but the envy is fleeting. Everyone carries the same weight, it just settles in different places. As the time for your next shift approaches, you gather yourself piece by piece. You strap your armor back on, feeling the familiar weight settle onto your shoulders. You pick up your sword, your club, your badge of office. You force your feet into your boots and your mask of indifference onto your face. You step out into the world again, as alone in the crowd as you were in your bunk. The city does not care about your loneliness, and neither does your duty. But for a moment, just a moment, you allow yourself to feel it, sharp and cold and true. Then you bury it once more and return to the streets. Exhaustion is not just a state of the body, you discover, but a condition of the spirit. It does not begin with aching muscles or a heavy head, but with a slow, creeping fog that settles over your thoughts and leaves everything gray and formless. At first, you tell yourself it is only tiredness, that all you need is a night of good sleep, a proper meal, a single day without violence or fear. You wait for that day. It does not come. You wake before dawn, groaning as you pull yourself from the thin mattress. Your bones crack in protest. Your feet swell against the leather of your boots. Your back sings a litany of pains learned from too many years on the cobbles and too many nights on the cold barracks floor. You reach for your sword, your club, your battered helmet. They are heavier each morning, as if the city itself is conspiring to slow you down. You tell yourself it is duty that moves you, habit, perhaps, or necessity. But the truth is less noble. There is nothing else. Guarding is the only thing you know, the only thing left to you. There are no farms that will take you, no trades that will train you, no wealthy relatives to offer you shelter from the world's weather. You cannot quit. There is nowhere to go. Each day is a repetition of the last. Patrol the market, break up a fight, chase down a thief, return to the barracks for a meal that tastes of ash and fatigue. The faces blur, those you arrest, those you protect, those who curse your name as you walk by. You are not sure if you are helping anyone. You are not sure if you care anymore. Your body pays the price. The cuts and bruises take longer to heal. Your hands shake sometimes, and you lose your temper faster than you should. Your eyesight falters. Your hearing rings with the shouts of 100 market days, the screams of a dozen dungeons. You find yourself staying at nothing, your mind wandering away to places you cannot follow. Some guards drink to dull the pain, others gamble, brawl, or find solace in the arms of those who ask no questions. You have tried each remedy and found them wanting. The weariness lingers, a sullen companion that follows you from sunrise to sunset and back again. The captain speaks of duty, honor, and the pride of wearing the city's crest. You listen because you must, but his words ring hollow. You have seen him shrink from danger, watched him accept bribes, heard him laugh as he counts his coins in the dark. If he believes in the righteousness of your work, he hides it well. If not, he is only better at pretending. You think about the people you serve, about the woman you saw weeping as her home was seized for unpaid debts, about the boy who stole a loaf of bread and vanished into the alleys before you could bring yourself to catch him, about the merchant who shakes as he passes you, unsure whether you will help or hurt him today. You think about the city itself, breathing and groaning, swallowing up lives by the hundred, and wonder if it notices your efforts at all. Sometimes, late at night, you allow yourself to ask the question you keep buried all day. What is it all for? The answer never comes. Not really. You tell yourself it is for order, for peace, for the good of the city. But you see little order, less peace, and wonder if the city has any good left to serve. You try to remember why you took the job. Was it duty, hunger, fear, ambition? The reasons have faded, lost beneath the weight of the days. You only know that you have become someone else, a stranger to the child who once believed in justice, a ghost to the person who dreamed of a better life. You watch new recruits arrive, eyes wide, shoulders straight, eager to impress. You wonder how long it will take for the city to grind them down, to turn them into another face in the crowd, another hand gripping a club for lack of anything else to hold. You see old guards leave, broken or bitter or both, and you know their stories will be forgotten just as yours will be. The exhaustion grows until it is all you know. You drag yourself from one day to the next, moving because you must, resting when you can, never quite escaping the feeling that you are running in place. The city spins on, indifferent, and you cling to your place in its machinery, even as it wears you away, bit by bit. And yet, somehow, you endure, not because of hope or courage, but because endurance is the only thing left. You are too stubborn to quit, too tired to try, too used to pain to be surprised by it. You keep going, not for glory or reward, but because that is what you do. The city demands it, and you obey. You wonder how much longer you can last. You wonder if you care, and then you rise again, one more time, for another day that looks exactly like the last. The days bleed together. There is no clear line between past and present. Each shift, each night, each cold dawn is another verse in the same grim litany. You wake because you must, eat because you can, patrol because there is nothing else to do. The city waits, as indifferent and immovable as stone, and you, its weary, battered sentinel, wait with it. There is no storybook ending to your service. The city does not rise up and cheer you. There are no parades, no banners, no grateful crowds pressed against the gates to shake your hand or shout your name. You are not a hero or even a villain. You are a piece of the machinery, a moving part in a system designed to grind both stone and spirit to dust. You think sometimes of leaving. You dream of running away into the forests beyond the fields, to some distant village where your badge and your burdens mean nothing. But where would you go? The years have hollowed out your options as surely as they have hollowed your hopes. You do not know how to farm, or to mend, or to build. Your hands remember only how to grip a club, how to buckle armor, how to drag a man screaming to the dungeons. Your body is shaped by this life, and the world has no use for that shape beyond the city's walls. The new recruits still come, fresh faced and full of questions. You watch them, how quickly they lose their shine, how soon their voices grow rough, how fast they learn to avoid the eyes of those they are meant to protect. You want to warn them sometimes, to tell them to run while they still can, to leave before the job remakes them into something dull and hard and lonely. But you say nothing. Warnings are as useless as hope in this place. On rare evenings, when the city's noise fades and your aches subside to a tolerable throb, you allow yourself to imagine that things could be different. Maybe, in another world, you could be proud of what you do. Maybe, in another world, you could be seen as something more than a shadow at the edge of the square, more than a reminder of law and punishment. But the thought never lasts. Reality returns with the next shout, the next summons, the next duty that cannot be ignored. You try to recall the moments of kindness, the rare gestures of gratitude, a loaf of bread left on a doorstep, a whispered thanks from a mother whose child you chased away from danger, a nod from a merchant who remembers that you once let him pass through the gate without trouble. These are small things, quickly swallowed by the endless tide of resentment and fear. You cling to them, but they are never enough. You see your life stretching ahead, unbroken, like the city wall itself. You know the end will come, not with a shout or a blaze of glory, but with a whisper. Perhaps you will be cut down in the street, another casualty in a city that does not know your name. Perhaps you will fall sick and die in your bunk, mourned by none, quickly replaced. Or perhaps you will simply grow too slow, too tired, and the captain will give your badge to someone younger, someone who still believes the work means something. There are no medals, no pensions, no golden years. When your usefulness ends, so does your story. You become a cautionary tale, a name mumbled in the barracks, a warning to the next generation of guards to keep their heads down and their hearts shut. You wonder sometimes if anyone will remember you, not the man in armor, not the enforcer of another man's laws, but the person beneath, the one who laughed, who dreamed, who once believed that justice was something more than a word painted on a wall. You doubt it. The city has no memory for such things. It eats what it needs and spits out the rest. And yet, you remain. Day after day, night after night, you walk the same streets, see the same faces, endure the same pain and suspicion. You are a fixture, as reliable and unremarkable as the stones beneath your feet. You do not ask for more. There is no point. You do what must be done, not for glory or reward, but because someone has to. Because if you did not, the city would simply find another hand to lift the club, another at back to bear the weight. In the end, the life of a guard is not a story, but a sentence handed down by chance or necessity, served without appeal. There are no clean slates here, no new beginnings, only the daily burden, the endless gray of duty, and the knowledge that you are, for better or worse, exactly what the city made you. As the bell tolls for another shift, you rise. You fasten your armor, grip your club, set your jaw against the wind and the coming day. You step out onto the street, ready to serve the city once again, not because you are a hero, not because you believe in the cause, but because it is your sentence and you have learned, painfully, finally, to endure it.